Hi, I'm Alicia. I'm the Client Relations and Branding Coordinator at EasyPro.
Hi, I'm Cheryl. I'm a Customer Service Development Coordinator at EasyPro.
So as long as I've been here, we've only been selling Becker windmills, not EasyPro. So why is that?
That's a great question. We have sold several different brands of windmills over the year, and the Becker windmill has always been a very well-engineered, well-designed windmill. And the company itself that made the windmill, unfortunately the owner was unable to continue running the company, and their first thought was to just stop selling the windmills, but we had so many of them out there and we had so many customers that loved them. We got into some negotiations with them and we actually bought the Becker windmill brand. So we brought that in here, we assemble all the windmills here, build the compressors here. We've only made a few minor changes. We put the hinge kit on them, and we've also gone and redesigned the entire installation manual. Originally it was like 2 pages of nothing but paragraphs. Now we're up to about 12 or 15 pages of a manual with all the pictures and steps laid out in it. So we just didn't want to lose that windmill, and we didn't want to have customers out there without access to parts. So we moved it from Wapakoneta, Ohio up here and have continued on the great tradition that Becker Mill started with that windmill.
Awesome.
We've been very pleased with it.
It's great to hear.
Yeah.
So who is a windmill aerator usually designed for?
This for people who are usually not near an electric supply and they want to get aeration in the pond. Generally the ponds are about 1 acre or smaller, probably depth no more than 15 feet. And a windmill can really aerate nicely, and you're also in an area where it can get the wind. Not in a real low spot with a lot of trees that are going to block the wind.
How does a windmill aerator work?
The compressor is built into the windmill head. So there's a shaft that attaches it to the valve plate that goes up and down in there. And when the wind spins that shaft, the blades spins the shaft, causes that plate to go up and down. It compresses the air and forces it down into the pond. That is basics. It's really pretty simple.
What are the advantages of wind-powered aeration?
Well, obviously you're saving electricity costs. You don't have to pay for that. If you're in a remote location, you're going to be able to aerate a pond that you might not normally be able to aerate if you don't have electric out there. And plus it looks really cool.
Is a windmill a good option for every pond?
Not really. If you're in an area where you got electric's always going to give you steady, consistent aeration 24/7. And if your pond is really large, windmills by themselves, an individual windmill can aerate approximately an acre-sized pond if it's pretty uniform in shape. But if you're getting into long, skinny ponds, you're getting into really large ponds, a windmill's not going to be able to aerate a whole pond like that.
Makes sense. How much wind does it actually need to work?
Believe it or not, 5 miles per hour it'll start pumping air. You're going to want a stronger wind than that to get a really good bubbling effect, but even at 5 miles, they'll be putting some aeration into your pond.
Okay. How large of a pond can a windmill effectively aerate?
Well, like I said, if it's pretty uniform in shape and there's no islands or peninsulas, about a 1 acre pond, up to about 15 foot deep, it can aerate really well.
How far away from a pond can a windmill be installed?
You can go up to a couple thousand feet if you need to, but keep in mind the further away from the pond you're going, the larger the diameter tubing has to be so you're not getting back pressure that's going to prevent it from pumping the air to the pond.
What if my pond doesn't have electricity nearby?
Then a windmill would be a good option. Even if it's a bigger pond, some aeration is always better than no aeration. So even if you 2 or 3 acre pond, if you can get a couple of diffusers in there, you're getting some movement, you're getting some oxygen. It's going to help keep at least that section of the pond healthier.
How difficult is a windmill to install?
It's not easy. It's like a big erector set, hundreds of pieces, and plan on a long weekend and having a buddy over to help you. We actually partnered with a local Michigan installer to create a video on how to assemble the windmill and install it too, so that's really helpful. Plus our instruction guide, step-by-step process showing all the pictures and everything that you're ever going to need, and it also has a list of all the components, so you know exactly what you need, and it's a good thing to keep hold of.
Do the windmills require much maintenance?
It's recommended to go out probably every year and make sure everything's nice and tight, because things will start loosening up. Also, the windmill, the diaphragm up in the compressor, that will wear out. So when you're watching the bubbles, might be a good idea to take a picture of that diffuser on a nice breezy day, showing how much bubbles there are so you can check it periodically. If they're getting less and less, then you know it's time to get that diaphragm replaced. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking there's something wrong with the diffuser because there's not as much bubbles, when in reality the diaphragm is just wearing out in the windmill.
Okay.
But usually about every 2 years I recommend replacing the diaphragm.
Can the windmills be used during the winter?
Oh sure, I recommend putting the freeze control on them though. The thing about compressed air is it creates condensation in the line, and as long as the wind's blowing, that condensation's getting moved through, but the minute the wind stops blowing, it may settle in the lower spots of the tubing, and on a cold day, those could freeze and block the line. So using our windmill freeze control, if that happens, it pops open a little valve and releases some rubbing alcohol in the line, thaws it out, and the windmill's off and running again.
Okay, so you recommend using them year-round then?
Oh yeah, aeration year-round is always the best option.
How does the wind-powered aeration compare to the electric aeration?
If you had a nice steady wind 24/7, it would be a great comparison. Unfortunately, that's not the case, so electric is always going to be giving you steadier, better aeration than a windmill. And the same thing with solar. Solar is great during the day when you have the sun out. The systems with battery backups are great because they'll run at night, but at the same time they're limited on as well as a windmill, they're limited on how big a pond they can do. And if you don't have battery backups, you're still dependent on the sun. So on overcast, cloudy days, you may not be getting as much, and of course at night you're not getting aeration. And nighttime is usually the most important time to have your pond aerated.
So if I'm still not sure which aeration system I should go with, how do I know which one is better?
Well, of course, knowing the size of your pond, how deep it is, if you have electricity or not is always important, but if you're still unsure, give us a call. We'd be glad to help walk you through it and pick out the best system for your pond.
Oh, and I'm the last restart that, sorry.
Any more coaching?
How do you want us to play that one?
I wasn't expecting to have that good of an answer.
Right?
That was awesome.
That was a good answer.
Is there a reason for it? I
Well
think
done.
we're good to go.
Woohoo!
Nice